This is our live session after a long time. Although I had been planning this for a few days, I couldn't do it. And basically today I'll be discussing the questions we did yesterday in the class, and we discussed some essay questions which have been recently asked in the exam. They were about the early marriage, the validity of the written exams, traveling abroad for higher studies, and whether English will stay as an international language or not. Now, whenever you are writing essay, as we discussed in the class yesterday, the first thing to think about is what you want to say. That means what is your answer to the question. So you first think about the topic, what they're asking based on that topic, and what is your answer to the question. And once you know that, you think about the 2 points you are going to use to answer the question. Once you're ready with this, the process of writing starts. Now, in our case, we start by using the template. And in our template, if you have noticed in the introduction part, there are 3 gaps. The first gap is for writing the topic. In the second gap, you identify the question and paraphrase the question and fill the gap. And in the third gap, you write your answer. Now, there are 2 ways you can write answer in the third gap. The first is you can simply say, for example, let's say you are writing an answer to the question whether English will stay as a global language or not. You can simply write, yes, it will stay as a global language. Or if you already know why it will stay as a global language and you know what you are going to write in your body paragraph, then you can include that information as well. For example, you can say, I would say, for this, regarding this, I would say English will stay as a global language because of its influence on information and communication, like that. Now, once you have finished the introduction part, you go to the body part. In the body part, in the first paragraph, you start with your first idea. In our case, the first idea here is, if we are writing about English, that it influences access to the information. Now, you need to explain that part. How do you explain? The first, you just say that it influences access to the information, and then after that, you say how that changes anything. Which means, if you look at the template, it means you have to explain so what. So what you're going to do there is, so first you say, one compelling argument in favor of English as a global language has to do with the fact that it has simplified the access to the information. Or you might say, has to do with the fact that there is a large volume of information in English on the internet. And after that, you have to say how that changes anything, or how that makes English a global language then. So you write, because of this, or due to this, there are a large number of people who are learning English every day, which in turn encourages even a larger number of people to learn the language. And then you need to give an example. So the example here can be given by saying, to put this into perspective, a large number of researchers learn English every day to study about other people's work as well as to present their own work. Once you do this, your first paragraph is complete, and you go to the second paragraph where you write about the second idea. Your second idea here is the simplified communication. So you start by saying, looking back at the introduction, one could also argue that English has simplified the international communication, and then you have to say why. And for this, you say, this is because English is the most widely spoken second language all over the world. So what does that mean? That would be your third sentence. As a result, a large number of people communicate with each other using English. And is there any example of this? Then you say, as a case in point, the example we used yesterday. As a case in point, many Chinese merchants use English to communicate with their trade partners living in other countries, which has simplified and helped them expand their business. So that would be the end of the second paragraph. So basically in the paragraphs, what you do is, in the first paragraph, you give your idea, and then you say, so what? How it changes anything related to the question. And then you write again, so what? How it changes anything related to the question. So basically it's idea 1, so what, so what. Then in the second paragraph, you write the idea 2, and then you try to write why that's a relevant idea, or how that is related to the topic. So you write, this is because, and you give the reason. And then after that, you write as a result, and you give the result of that is related to the topic, and you give one example after that. Then you go to the conclusion part. In the conclusion part, what you do is you simply think about the points you have made earlier. Now, in this situation, most of the people feel confused about what to write. So what you can do is you can use a trick here. That trick is, look at the introduction, the last sentence of the introduction, and then just paraphrase that part and you can say hence based on the arguments above. So if we paraphrase the last sentence of our introduction, it would be hence based on the arguments above, English has greatly simplified the international communication as well as enhanced the access to the information. That would be the summary of what we have mentioned so far. And then you just emphasize your answer by saying something like, therefore I assert that, therefore I do believe that, therefore I have a notion that English will stay as a global language. So you wrap up your essay by repeating the stand you took at the beginning. So if I have to summarize everything I told you today, it's introduction, has topic, question and answer. In the answer you take a position, and then after that in the body paragraphs you try to defend your position by giving two ideas, and you try to explain those ideas subsequently by saying so what, or why and so what, and then you go to the conclusion, you summarize your ideas and you reassert your idea one more time. So this is how you write an essay. Now this is the first time I have tried to do something like this. Let me know how you felt about it and whether I should continue this or not. My plan is to do this every day, basically as a summary of the previous day's class. If you think it can benefit you to learn, then let me know, or if there are anything else you want me to discuss during these sessions, just let me know in the class. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you in the class shortly.